I don't know who made up that introduction. Whoever it was, I owe them $5. So, I have been given the ominous task of keeping y'all awake now after lunch on this beautiful day. And I guess maybe it's the second full day of the lectureship. We didn't get here till last night. Hi, Berta. And so some of you may not have gotten a very good night's sleep being away from home. So I hope that you will enjoy the lesson enough that you can stay awake. I am glad to have some of my family here, a niece and my sister and our bonus grandchild over there, and Shay would be my niece-in-law. And of course all of my Autumn and all of her bunch. That it's just always glad to see them, and it's wonderful to see all of you ladies here today too. We're going to be talking about the wise mother and discipline. And y'all may have to, it may take me a minute because we've got a little different setup than what I'm used to, but I think we can do this. Can y'all see over there? You're going to want to see these pictures. Now, I'm telling you. All right. As goes the home, so goes the nation and the church. Anybody think our nation needs improving? Where do you think that starts? In the home. Y'all can talk to me. I don't care. Just don't throw stuff, okay? Just don't throw stuff. We know that children are a blessing. They're a heritage from God. That's Psalms 127 verse 3. But they're also a major responsibility. And as a mother, I would say the bulk of the responsibility falls on you, usually. You're the one who is the one that spends the most time with the children. You usually have to do the most disciplining, the teaching, and all that. So, we're going to talk about discipline today. Let me see if I can get this where I don't feel like this. Let me break this. Don't tell those guys. Will that thing not turn? There it goes. There it goes. Y'all, I am tech swabby. Okay. Notice how I use my purse? All right. Effective discipline. To be effective, it has to have these 4 components. The first one is that it needs to be consistent. Both parents need to agree on the method that they're going to use. And consistency is going to help. And we're going to be concentrating mostly on preschool age to maybe into the elementary ages with these things. But consistency will help this toddler to develop a sense of security because he knows what's going to be expected of him and what his parents are going to tell him. Number 2, it needs to be administered in a timely fashion. Preschoolers do not understand time. Have you ever told your preschooler 5 more minutes? What? That means nothing to the preschooler. They only understand the immediate present. So when you're doing discipline in a timely fashion, you may actually have to stop the car and get out. Or you may have to actually leave your groceries and leave to pick your kid up and go out. Because they don't understand when we get home, By the time you get home, you've probably forgotten. I know we did a time or two. And number 3, it needs to produce the desired action. If your discipline method is not producing a positive change in your child, then it's not effective. And number 4, it needs to be age appropriate. Remember, your children are not miniature adults. They're children. Some popular methods of discipline today. The first one I have here, and keep in mind, some of these work some of the time. I'm not going to say don't ever use these, but just know that they don't always work. The first one is the positive reinforcement. This is when you give them a reward for doing something good or what you've asked them to do. If you were in politics, it would be called a bribe. But, we don't say that to our children. This works best with the smaller ones. Did anybody ever use M&Ms to potty train? That kind. There you go. Thank you, Jennifer. How about a sticker chart for their chores? And, at the end of the week, they get whatever. That's positive reinforcement. But the negatives, let me see if I can just touch that. Yes. The negatives are that eventually they're going to get big enough that little trinket or piece of candy or sticker is not going to be enough. they're going to want the big bucks. I guarantee you they're going to want the big bucks. This behavior that you want them to, that you're wanting them to continue, will stop when the rewards are removed also, if this is their only motivation. So nowadays, everybody gets a reward, don't they? Even if they didn't meet the requirements. This takes away motivation, and it takes away a sense of accomplishment that they really need to learn early on. And also, this method doesn't address the correction of bad behavior. Children need to be taught early that there are consequences to bad behavior. And so that is some reasons why this positive reinforcement might not work. Number 2, the ever popular timeout. Taking your child away from a situation and setting them in a corner or in their room or on a stool, like this little girl who says it's going to be a does not play well with others kind of day. But negatives for this one, like I just said, is that they don't have a sense of time. You know, you've got to sit in that chair for 10 minutes. Well, the whole time they're there, what are they going to be doing? How much longer, Mama? How much more? Can I get up now? You know, it's just a constant. They don't understand how long 5 minutes is. And another negative is that it can't be administered in a timely fashion. When you're in the middle of Walmart, how are you going to put this kid in timeout? Or, you know, the children are smarter than we give them credit for, and they figured this out. I can act ugly in front of other people. Mama can't do anything. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? A third method is that of taking away privileges, toys, phones. Cell phones work good with teenagers. Car keys work even better with teenagers. But you've got to be willing to do what you said you were going to do. So if you're going to ground your teen for a month, I can't quite see all of it. Let me see what I can do. If you're going to ground your teen for a month, realize that you're punishing yourself too. Keep that in mind, so be reasonable. Negatives to taking away the privileges is that some kids just really don't care. You could take away everything in their room and make them sit in there with just the walls. Doesn't bother them. I've known kids like that. It's just a minor inconvenience for them. It also tends to be inconsistent. I'm getting a little ahead, but y'all can go ahead and be writing. Punishment, this type of punishment sometimes gets lifted for a special occasion. Okay, you're grounded for 2 weeks. 2 days later, best friend calls. I'm having a birthday party. I need Junior to come. Oh, it's his best friend. Are we going to let him go, or is he grounded? Well, we're going to make an exception. So you've just defeated the whole point there. And also, sometimes one parent doesn't go along with the grounding and allows them to get away with things they shouldn't be doing when they're supposed to be grounded. When you threaten a child who's having a tantrum, nowadays the popular politically correct term is meltdown, but it's just a plain old temper tantrum is what it is. When they're doing that and you're telling them you're going to lose your toy or you're not going to get a treat, they're not listening. When they're in the middle of a screaming fit, they're not going to listen. Another popular method is that of compromise and or discussion. And this is where you take the 2-year-old and you sit them down and you explain why that your behavior is not acceptable, and it's really bothersome to Mother and I when we have to da 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 da. This is what the child hears, da 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 da. And you watch their face and their eyes are going, they don't know what you're saying and they don't care what you're saying. A lot of parents also in this discussion type thing, they will encourage their child to discuss this with them. Speak their mind. I've heard mothers saying, I want my children to feel free to say whatever they're thinking. Oh, no, you don't. You don't. We'll get a little bit more into that in a minute, but no, you don't, okay? Some negatives are, this destroys your authority as a parent. When you're doing this compromise and discussion, you are the parent, you are not their friend. Okay? You can be their friend when they get to be 25. But up to that point, you be the parent. They're not really supposed to like you all the time. If they do, you're not doing it right. Okay? You're not doing it right. This is not appropriate for small children because, like I just said, they don't know what you said. They don't understand all of that rationalism and, let's talk about this and understand why did you. No. The University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine published an article in the Pediatrics magazine that said, verbal explanations and instructions are not effective. Did you hear the not effective in changing young children's problem behaviors. When you tell your child, you're going to do that because I said so, that's good enough. You're going to do that because I'm the parent. When you get to be the parent, you can make the rules. That's good enough. That helps to reinforce the fact that you're the one who's in charge. It teaches a lack of self-control to your child if you allow them to always speak their mind, to just say whatever they think. The French people, this is from a doctor, therapist, and she said that over in the French culture, that French children don't need medication to control their behavior because they learn self-control early on in life. The children grow up in families where the rules are well understood. Did you hear the word rules? Are well understood, and a clear family hierarchy is firmly in place. Parents are firmly in charge of their kids instead of the American-style family, in which this situation is all too often vice versa. Did you know that by the time a child is 3 years old, he knows whether he's got to listen to you or whether you're going to listen to him? 3 years old, mamas. 3 years old. He knows who's in charge at your house. These third chapter of James is where I want you to think about when you're talking about, we're not going to turn there. I just want you to think about this. When you're encouraging your child to speak his mind, James tells us to control our tongue, right? And if you're teaching your child it's okay to just blurt out whatever they're thinking, you're not teaching that self-control that he's going to need later on in life. Now, John Roseman is a well-known child psychologist. He's worldwide known, and he's had 14 best-selling books. I don't know that he's a member of the church, but he's got some really good parenting advice. And as you can see there on the screen, he says children do not deserve explanations for their parents' instructions and decisions. They deserve parents who act confident in their instructions and decisions. So what he's saying is, when you tell your child something, you don't ask them, is that okay with you? How many parents now say, it's time to put your toys away and we're going to eat supper? Okay. No. Put up your toys, we're going to eat. Come to the table, wash your hands. Not, is this okay? The first time your child gets pulled over for speeding, the officer's not going to say, I'm going to write you a ticket. Is that okay? You see, what we teach them early, they're going to continue through life with. And this is what Dr. Roseman is saying. He said, obedient children are happy children, and this makes for happy parents. I heard a mother one time tell her child to do something, and he just totally ignored her and went on and did what he wanted to. And she made the statement, it doesn't matter what I say, they're going to do what they want to anyway. And I didn't say anything for the first time in my life, but I was thinking, no, your child is going to do what you allow them to do. And if you told him to come over there and sit down and instead he went outside and played, like I said, who's the parent here? Ignoring bad behavior is another popular method today. And this might, if you're at home with your 2-year-old and they're having a bad day and they're whining and it's just y'all, if you can put up with it, that's one thing. Okay? But don't make other people have to tolerate it. There are negatives to ignoring bad behavior. Children are going to make bad choices. Proverbs 22:15. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. They don't know how to make wise choices yet. They haven't matured to that point. They're expecting you to be the parent and make the good choices for them. They don't understand acceptable behavior unless they are corrected by the parent. Some behaviors need to be stopped immediately. You see, you might not can see that, like when it says what you allow, you encourage. These are things that need to be stopped immediately. Talking back, or being a smart mouth, arguing, saying no. Have you ever heard a kid look at their mom and go, no? Mine might do it once. If I had done it to my mom and daddy, I wouldn't have had a mouth. It'd have been over on the floor. Butting in when adults are talking. I told my children, when I'm on the phone or talking to another adult, unless you're bleeding from the head or something's on fire, you better not come and tell me anything. They have to learn these things early. Behavior Management magazine said accepting or ignoring bad behavior can result in students who become increasingly disrespectful. Is that funny? Being allowed to listen to adult conversations. Remember, these are children. They're not adults. They don't need to sit in the living room with you and your husband and another couple from church while y'all are discussing the problems that are going on in your congregation. They don't need to hear that. That even if they're teenagers, they don't need to hear that. So watch what you say, because if they're small, they're going to repeat it. I guarantee you they're going to repeat it. I know I told a Sunday school teacher one time when our two oldest were little, I said, if you won't believe everything they tell you in class, I won't believe what they tell me about you. Because I'm telling you, they're going to tell it. And if they're a little older and they're listening in, they may get the wrong impression. They may draw wrong conclusions. You don't want them to do that. It's like the little boy that went up to the preacher after church and he said, when I get older, I'm going to get a job that pays good and I'm going to give you some of my money. And of course the preacher was really touched and he's like, that is so sweet. He said, well, why do you want to do that? And he said, because I heard Daddy say that you're the poorest preacher we ever had. They're going to tell it. You need to stop any form of physical defiance. This includes kicking, biting, headbutting, scratching. Anything that your child does like that, that's old enough to know better, and it doesn't take them long to know better. I have seen a mother come to church on more than one occasion with her whole side of her face black, and she'd say, oh, he headbutted me again. I'm like, again? Once should have been more than enough. And he definitely understands it. So, none of that. Disrespectful gestures. You ever had a kid shake his fist at you? Stick out his tongue? Roll his eyes? Any of those kinds of things. Spit. I've seen them spit. They see this type of behavior maybe on TV. Maybe they pick it up at daycare or school. They're going to try it out at home, and that's where it stops. Right then. Just like the bad words. One time, done. One and done. Another behavior that needs to be stopped immediately is ignoring your first instruction. Don't get into the habit of repeating yourself and counting. And I'll tell you why. One of our children, one time as I was coming out of a store and had bags in one hand and another kid in this hand and this kid, and I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but it wasn't one of the girls. He was going to just step right off the curb and go, and he was, I don't know, second grade maybe, somewhere around in there. And a car was coming. And so I'm saying, stop right now. If I had not beat him into knowing that when Mama says stop, you stop, he could have stepped right out in front of that car and been hit. You know, if he was waiting for Mama to count to 3, you know how they'll turn around and grin and keep doing whatever they're doing? Because, hey, Mama's doing fractions now. 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. And they just keep on with the bad behavior until 3, and then they start over. Okay, 1. And I'm like, not only is that not effective discipline, it could be dangerous when you need your child to stop right then, whatever it is that you're telling them. So, how is the wise mother going to discipline her children? Well, number one, stop listening to the world when it contradicts God. The world is going to tell you that spanking brings issues like antisocial behavior. I don't think we've ever had a more antisocial behavior than we do now. And I'm going to say the anti-spanking along with the social media have led to this. Aggression, 48 Hours reported in 2012 that an average of 5 parents a week are killed by their biological children. This was unheard of when I was growing up, a kid killing their parents. I mean, we were afraid of being killed, you know. We never thought about killing our parents. Injury. Well, you might injure your child if you do it incorrectly, but we're not talking about child abuse. We're talking about what God says to do, and it is a physical type of punishment. The world tells you that if you spank, your child's going to have mental health problems. We have more of that now than ever also. You just put that right up there with the antisocial behavior. Critics say it doesn't work. Worked with me. Anybody else work with you? Anybody else hear your daddy coming down the hall popping that belt? You know, it didn't take much. I heard a comedian one time, he said he and his brother, his daddy would send him to sit in his parents' bedroom and sit there for like 10 minutes waiting for him to come to spank them, and they could see the belts lined up. And he said it was like the belts were going, pick me, pick me. They need to feel that, ladies. How have our public schools changed because of the lack of discipline in the home? Anybody in here a school teacher? Raise your hand. Oh, I admire you so much. You're a better woman than I am. This is an article from the Rome News Tribune, and this was back in 2006, so we're talking nearly 20 years ago, because we're into like 2 generations now of, you know, don't spank your kids. And I'm just a little bit of this, where this man says, he Googled police in schools, just Googled it, and he said that police in schools reflects an acceptance of bad behavior that was once unacceptable and should be again. He got 3.5 million hits on Google when he Googled police in schools. He said that parents need to be held responsible. They need to be told in the most forceful way that education is a privilege and not a right. The classroom should be as tight as a Marine Corps discipline. He said they should not be allowed to be rude or disrespectful toward the teachers or the staff, and they should be given immunity against lawsuits, suspensions, and expulsions should they be treated that way. I agree. If I got in trouble at school, guess what happened when I got home? I got in trouble again. So I didn't get in trouble at school. At least didn't get caught. Didn't get caught. He says, we have grown soft and irresponsible. We are afraid to condemn bad behavior. Amen. That's what's wrong in our schools. And that is why, if I were raising my children today, they would be homeschooled. They would be homeschooled. And I admire you public teachers for hanging in there. Not only are you putting up with the top brats of society, you're having to put up with government foolishness. And I know, I will tell you this, and she's going to give me a 5-minute warning, which, are we getting close? No? Okay. I think it was Brad Harrop that told this back a few months ago. He did a seminar for us, and he said this, you know how kids now can come to school and say, I'm a dog. You know, I'm a possum, whatever. So this one kid decided he wanted to be a dog, and he barked all during the class. Arr, 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 arr. Teacher's trying to teach. She's not allowed to say anything. He kept doing it to the point that the students started barking back at him. Guess who got called to the principal's office? The other students. Now this is what Brother Brad said, if I remember correctly, it came from him. He said, had I been the principal, I would have brought in the barking boy and told him, this is a school for humans. You go home, and when you decide to be a human, you can come back to this school. But we don't have dogs in this school, so bye. I have heard of some schools talking about putting litter boxes in the restrooms because they want to be like a dog or a cat. Y'all, how stupid we can say stupid. Did y'all hear the lesson last night? How stupid has our society become? We've lost all common sense. That wasn't even in my notes. Okay. So, where am I? Teachers are quitting because of the challenging work conditions, increased paperwork, ridiculous curriculum, and unrealistic expectations. And the second top reason is lack of respect from the students and from their parents. Do you have trouble getting Sunday school teachers? Be sure it's not because of your kid. But I've had people say, I'm not teaching that class. I can't teach a class with so-and-so in there. We don't want it to be our children that are like that. Everything we buy today pretty much has a warning label on it, doesn't it? And these exist for a reason. The person who makes this product wants you to know how to use it properly. And so they're going to give you a warning. And some of them are really, really dumb. Remove the child before you fold the stroller. I mean, do we really need that on the stroller? Yeah, somebody said yeah. This is not a life-saving device. Do not leave child unattended, and yet we see it. Oh, they'll be fine. Do not turn your back on your child if they're in something like this. Do not use a hairdryer while you're sleeping. You'd be surprised. Guilty. Anybody else guilty? Don't iron your clothes while you're wearing them. If you get a thick enough towel and put it up there between you and... Don't you laugh at me like that. Hey, Terry. When we're traveling and don't have an iron sometimes, I've been known to use my curling iron. It works. Just be sure you got enough padding between you and the hot part. Okay. I knew Terry should sit in the back, but no, she had to sit down front. When it comes to disciplining our children, we need to listen to God. We listen to warnings from manufacturers, don't we? And if we mess up because of something we did, we don't blame the manufacturer. We're like, oh, stupid me. Why did I do that? It says right there on the instructions. It's in Chinese, but it's still there. You know, and there's a picture to go with it. We realize consequences are our own fault if we didn't follow the manufacturer's instructions. So when it comes to your children, let's listen to God and not the world. God created you. God created your child. He knows what's best for both of us. In 1 Corinthians 1:25, we're told that the foolishness of God is wiser than men. If there was any foolishness in God, it's wiser than the wisest person you'd ever think of. Jeremiah 1:5 says that God said, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. For sake of time, I'm going to leave this part out, but there's an article from a police officer about children and spanking, and he says that the elimination of corporate punishment, spanking, physical punishment, has led to this attitude of children of no fear. They're not afraid of anything because they know that if you touch them, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble. So he spoke out about that. Do you think that children are better behaved now without being spanked than they were back in, say, our grandmother's generation, when anybody could jerk them up by the arm and give them a swallow on the bottom? When were they better behaved? Now or then? Then you grab up somebody else's kid and swat them. Now you just get your clothes ready to go to jail because you can't do that. What does God say about spanking? Hebrews 12:11. No chastening for the present seems to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. It's not pleasant to do. I didn't like to spank my children. Oh, no, it's got to be more than that. I'm almost. Proverbs 13:24, he that spares the rod hates his son, but he that loves him chastens him betimes, means when needed. Proverbs 23:13, withhold not correction, Proverbs 19:18, chasing your son while there's hope. You can wait too late to start discipline to where it won't be effective. Children should not be given the choice of obedience. Ephesians 6:1 says, children, obey your parents. When you give your child the option of not obeying you, you are teaching them the option of not obeying God. Do you see the significance and the importance? So how serious is God about obedience? I'm not going to read it. Y'all write it down. Romans 1:28 through 32. It lists all these horrible people, despiteful, inventors of evil. Right in the middle of all that, it says disobedient to parents. Do you see that? And at the bottom, it says not only those that do all these terrible things, but people who have pleasure in them that do them. In other words, you go along with it. Do you encourage anti-spanking? Maybe you don't have children, but you're one of them that says, oh, I don't think you should spank your child. You're that last part of that verse. People who go along with it. I've heard even Christians brag, oh, we don't spank. We don't spank at our house. Guess what? You didn't have to tell me that. I could tell by the way your kids acted. God's going to hold us responsible if we don't restrain our children. Eli was an indulgent parent in 1 Samuel 3:13, and God killed both his sons on the same day. It says, because he restrained them not. The Bible in Basic English says that he had no control over them. Along with proper biblical physical discipline, we need to teach our children to be socially socially acceptable. How about that? If you've got a new puppy and it jumps and chews and bites, you spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on obedience school, right? Your kid acts up and you just, had a bad day. John Roseman, the one I referred to earlier, he talked about that children need to know how to be visitors, and that includes at Grandma and Grandpa's house. There should be no running in the house, no jumping on the furniture, no throwing tantrums, no disrespect and screaming. I mean, how many grandparents can't wait for their grandchildren to leave so they can put the house back together? I mean, that's sad. It shouldn't be like that. And if you let your children act that way at home, they don't grow angel wings just because you're at somebody else's house. They think if it's okay at home, it's okay in public. That's another thing that John Rusman was talking about. They need to be taught good manners, please and thank you and no sir, and table etiquette. When's the last time you heard a child say, may I be excused? Nobody. They're just not taught that. We need to teach them to show respect through proper dress, Matthew 22:11. On the screen there, you see that these people got a discount because their kids were so well behaved in the restaurant. I have asked to move my table because kids were so ill behaved in a restaurant. I'm going to just run through these real quick. Teach your child that life is not fair, that TV is not real, and neither is social media. Always saying what you think is not going to serve you well as an adult. Hard work is its own reward. Let me catch up there. In real life, there are winners and losers, and the rewards have to be earned. And you will suffer consequences for your actions. Can I have one more minute? We're to the last section. Behaving in worship. Don't leave. Don't roll your eyes. It's better to never start a bad behavior in worship than to have to stop it. These suggestions come from a mother who raised 4 all by myself because my husband was up there being the star in the pulpit, okay? My mother raised 6 all by herself because my daddy was up there in the pulpit. I learned from the best, and I've learned from other mothers too. So, if your child is under the age of 2, it's best that they're in your lap. Do not let them in the floor at all. Before you know it, they're playing with the feet of the people behind you, or they're crawling under the bench in front of you. You have to teach them to sit quietly on the bench, and that starts at home. Make them sit at the table during mealtime. Don't let them get up. Make them sit on the sofa during Bible Devo time. Don't let them run around. When you're doing crafts or coloring, teach them how to sit for periods of time and to be quiet. This is going to take away stress from you. Believe me, it will make your life so much easier. Only bring quiet toys. If it rings, dings, sings, clangs, talks, Encourages them to go on the back of the bench. Don't bring it. And another one is those, what are them things? Them popper things. Fidget poppers. If it makes any noise at all, don't bring it to worship. Just because it's not bothering you doesn't mean it's not bothering everybody around you. You know, you're used to it. They may not be. Don't allow them to talk in church. They don't know how to whisper. Believe me, they don't know how to whisper. And don't be the mother that goes, shh. Honestly, louder than the kid. Y'all have heard it. I know you have. I can tell by why you're laughing. Don't let them turn around and look behind you. I know this is a lot of don'ts, but believe me, if you can get through the first 3 or 4 years with all of this, you're smooth sailing, okay? Smooth sailing. Don't take them out to the nursery and let them play. Take them out, spank their ears, bring them back, okay? It's not playtime. If you've got a baby and they start crying or inconsolable, take them out quickly to the nursery, feed them, change them, rock them. What do you have to do with the baby? That's different. But you need to take children out for effective discipline. That means they're going to act differently once it's time you get in there. And my most effective tool was a hickory switch. Y'all know what a hickory switch is? I just put it in the pew in front of me. All I had to do was act like I was going to touch it. And all of a sudden I had little statues. We didn't have to go out that much. Don't let them go out to the bathroom or to get water. Take them after class. Their little bladder can last for an hour. I promise you it'll last for an hour. And they don't need a gallon of water to drink during worship either. Okay? This is making your life easier if you can follow this. And only allow them to sit with other people once they're old enough that they can behave consistently, because otherwise when you get your child back, you've got to start over again, because they've been allowed to misbehave. Okay, conclusion. Let's just go on and get to it. Children come with an instruction book. It's called the Holy Bible. 2 Peter 1:3 says that as his divine power has given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue. There isn't anything in this life that pertains more to life than that of bringing up your children, right? And doing it God's way. So be the wise mother. Follow the manufacturer's instructions, and that would be God. I appreciate y'all so much for being here today. Thank you. You need that.